3 years after my death, my husband was preparing to receive the certificate with Bai Yueguam, who was seriously ill. He came to my house and asked me to sign the divorce papers. My mother said I was dead, but my husband said impatiently, "How long has she been playing such silly tricks? Chun Bingqing is suffering from a terminal illness. What happened to asking me to accompany her on her last journey? Why is she so selfish? Tell her for me that if she doesn't come out, I will cut off your medical expenses as an old woman." He was trying to use me to force my mom to show up. But little did he know that my mother had given up treatment long ago. She persists until now, just to see her husband regret it. Table of contents. Click on the chapter title to jump to the corresponding text location. Volume 1 default. Chapter 1, Chapter 1. 3 years after my death, my husband was preparing to receive the certificate with Bai Yueguam, who was seriously ill. He came to my house and asked me to sign the divorce papers. My mother said I was dead, but my husband said impatiently, "How long has she been playing such silly tricks? Chun Bingqing is suffering from a terminal illness. What happened to asking me to accompany her on her last journey? Why is she so selfish? Tell her for me that if she doesn't come out, I will cut off your medical expenses as an old woman." He was trying to use me to force my mom to show up. But little did he know that my mother had given up treatment long ago. She persists until now, just to see her husband regret it. 1. 3 years after my death, Xiaoxi finally thought of me. But now he is a highly anticipated business upstart, and I am just a lonely soul who has been cursed and cannot enter reincarnation. At this time, he was standing at the door of my house, scanning the empty room, and said coldly to my mother, "Get Jinghan out." The mother's body, which had been sick for a long time, was trembling. She said numbly, "My daughter is dead." Hearing this, Xiaoxi smiled sarcastically. "Dead? How could a selfish person like Jinghan die?" "I understand. It's because Chun Bingqing is terminally ill and I want to accompany her on her last journey. So she started acting?" He sneered and burst into the house, searching every room. "But I can't be found anywhere." The mother said, "Jinghan is really dead. If you want to find her, go to her grave." Xiaoxi's face suddenly darkened. "Do you think this method is really effective? Let me tell you, if your daughter doesn't get out and divorce me, don't blame me for cutting off your old woman's medical expenses." Seeing that my mother still didn't say a word, Xiaoxi laughed angrily and threw down the divorce agreement. "It's a tough talk, but it's useless. Have her sign it within 3 days, and then contact me immediately to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for divorce. If you can't do it." Speaking of this, Xiaoxi's eyes were so vicious and cold that I had never seen him before. Don't even think about living. He slammed the door and walked out, but it made my heart ache. In order to divorce me, he even risked my mother's life. But there was a kindness in my mother's eyes that I had never seen before. She watched Xiaoxi leave calmly, then turned around and took out the photos of my childhood from the drawer. She stroked the outline of my childhood, and I heard my mother say softly, "Ah Jing, mother will be with you soon." 2. Naturally, I had no way to divorce Xiaoxi, and a few days later, as expected, he cut off all my mother's medical expenses. My mother is old and has serious heart problems, along with high blood pressure, diabetes, all kinds of problems. If you persist in treatment, there is still hope for relief. But only I know that as early as 3 years ago, my mother had never used a penny from Xiaoxi, and her disease had already penetrated deep into her bones. Mom wanted to go with me for a long time, but she was unwilling to do so. She didn't want her daughter, who had given her true love, to be abandoned and trampled on like this. Therefore, before the moment of regret comes for Xiaoxi, she will definitely continue to live in this world. A week passed, and there was no movement from my mother. Xiaoxi finally lost his temper. He called my mother and said with a sneer, "That daughter of yours is so cruel. In order to avoid divorce, you even resorted to cruel tactics. I'm warning you, even if you die, I won't sympathize with you at all. Let Jinghan sign the divorce agreement obediently." My mother looked at the photo of me in her arms and dug her fingers deeply into her palm. "Xiaoxi, I've already said that my daughter is dead." Xiaoxi sneered. "It seems that you have to drink wine as a penalty instead of toasting. Do you think your daughter can escape my search? She won't let go, so I will find her myself. Bitterness spreads in my heart. Want to come out to me? I really hope you can find me, Xiaoxi, but I hope you won't regret it then." At this time, a weak female voice sounded on the other end of the phone, accompanied by a slight cough. "Xiaoxi, is there any news about Jinghan? Is she angry and wants to wait for me to die?" Xiaoxi quickly put down the phone and comforted her. "You have a good rest. Don't worry. I will definitely divorce her and marry you." But Chun Bingqing shook her head, her voice choked with sobs. "I know Jinghan has been wronged, and she must blame me now. I can understand that. I don't want to compete with her for you. I just want you to spend more time with me before I die." Her words were full of sincerity, but every word pointed the finger at me. It seems that I am the mistress who wins people's love. And I know that Xiaoxi will never stand by my side. "Bingqing, why do you think so? I love you. So, what qualifications does Jinghan have to fight with you? Don't worry, even if I go to the ends of the world, I will dig out her bones and sign the divorce agreement." As if on purpose, he viciously amplified his voice so that the mother on the other end of the phone could hear it, and then hung up without mercy. Listening to the beeping sound of hanging up on the other end of the phone, I could feel my mother's heart being completely chilled. She forced herself to stand up and wipe the tears from her eyes. He smiled and said, "It's okay, daughter. Mom will be with you soon." 3. In order to find me, Xiaoxi used all his connections in City A. I smiled somewhat self-deprecatingly. This may be the most important time for me in his heart. But it was useless. I saw him turn City A upside down and even went to the police station to report the case, but what he got was that there was no such person. Before she died, my mother moved my household registration to my hometown. Now I have nothing to do with City A. In the office, Xiaoxi was furious. "A bunch of trash. I can't even find anyone. Are you feeding the dogs the food you usually eat?" The secretary was trembling beside him. After a long time, he cautiously said, "Mr. Zhao, we have searched everywhere we can. The lady is no longer in City A." "She's still here. Where can she go? She left City A and me, and she can't survive at all." Xiaoxi pushed everything on the table to the ground like crazy. Looking at his self-righteous look, I couldn't help but twitch my lips. It turned out that he had always regarded me as a parasite in their family. No wonder he looked down on me and my mother so much. "Maybe you can check the hospital. Miss was hospitalized in a car accident 3 years ago. There should be records." The secretary spoke softly again. Xiaoxi's mind was barely clear for a while, but he soon realized something was wrong. Hospitalized? When did Jinghan get into a car accident? Why didn't I know? Just as the secretary was about to continue talking, Xiaoxi's cell phone rang. "Xiaoxi, my heart feels a little uncomfortable. It seems to be a rejection reaction. Can you come and stay with me?" Chen Bingqing spoke in an anxious and helpless tone, which made Xiaoxi feel extremely distressed. He almost immediately dropped what he was doing, sent his secretary to investigate my matter, and hurried to Chen Bingqing's side. My eyes couldn't help but feel a little sore. Once upon a time, Xiaoxi and I also had such a loving time. But now, none of this belongs to me. Maybe it's not my thing, and I shouldn't covet it. In fact, Chen Bingqing's heart belongs to me. After staying in her body for 3 years, I guess she has already adapted to her new owner, and there's no possibility of any rejection reaction. She just doesn't want Xiaoxi to be distracted by my affairs and take away the love that belongs to her. Xiaoxi rushed to the hospital in a hurry and was instantly relieved when the doctor said that Chen Bingqing was fine. Chen Bingqing's eyes lit up when she saw Xiaoxi. "Xiaoxi, you're here." When Xiaoxi saw that Chen Bingqing was in good spirits, he knew that there was nothing serious about her. He had been upset recently because he couldn't find me, and Chen Bingqing was shouting at him like this, which made her feel angry for some reason. "Next time it's nothing serious. It's better to see a doctor first." His tone was still a little restrained, but it could already be heard as unpleasant. Chen Bingqing was stunned for a moment, and in the blink of an eye, she changed into a look of pear blossoms and rain. "Xiaoxi, I am just too bored in the hospital and miss you so much. Recently, you have been thinking about how to find Jinghan, and you rarely come to see me. I didn't have many years to live, so I just wanted to see you more while I was alive." This trick has always been most useful to Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi immediately felt guilty. It was my lack of consideration that made you suffer alone in the hospital. It's all that Jinghan's fault. She's at this juncture and still plays the trick of disappearing. She has no intention. I smiled helplessly. I really had no intention. My heart was broken by Chen Bing as early as 3 years ago. Finally, Xiaoxi's secretary found my admission information from 3 years ago. Jinghan, female, 27 years old, died in a car accident after rescue efforts failed. When he submitted this information to Xiaoxi, Xiaoxi was trembling all over. 4. He turned over the pages with scarlet eyes, refusing to accept this fact. These are all nonsense. They are all nonsense. The hospital must have made them up. He tore the material into pieces like a madman, but the news that Jinghan died in a car accident had been deeply imprinted in his mind, and he couldn't get rid of it. How could this happen? Why did I never know about his car accident? Xiaoxi grabbed the secretary's clothes tightly and kept shaking him. Why didn't anyone tell me? The secretary couldn't bear to tell him. Miss Jinghan was already dying when she was sent to the hospital. You were busy preparing the blood bank for Miss Chen that day. The hospital called you several times, but you didn't answer any of them. I heard from the hospital that because there was no suitable blood source, Ms. Jing bled to death from excessive blood loss. How come there is no suitable blood source? Do all the blood banks in the hospital feed dogs? Xiaoxi shouted excitedly. The secretary could only reveal this cruel fact to him. Miss Jing and Miss Chen both have Rh-negative blood. You lost all the hospital's Rh-negative blood bank, so Miss Jing has no blood to transfuse at all and can only wait to die. Xiaoxi's pupils suddenly shrank. He covered his ears in pain and curled up on the ground. How could this happen? I didn't mean to transfer all the blood banks. I didn't know Jinghan also had a car accident that day. I didn't mean to transfer the blood banks. I'm not. The secretary sighed. Mr. Zhao, this person has passed away. Please give me your condolences. Just as he was about to help Xiaoxi up, Xiaoxi suddenly stood up as if he remembered something. Jinghan's mother. She knows everything. It's her. She deliberately hid it from me. You are all lying to me. Jinghan must not be dead. I must confront her. Xiaoxi's crazy look is a bit strange to me, but it also makes me feel ridiculous. I never thought that one day my death would force him to be like this. But even at this moment when the truth was revealed, he was still shirking responsibility. It was really hopeless. Xiaoxi found my mother in her hometown. In the vast field, my mother built a grave for me with her own hands. She offered incense to me devoutly, but Zhao Shi roughly interrupted the incense bundle in his mother's hand. He looked at my memorial tablet in disbelief and asked my mother excitedly, "What are you doing? Tell me what you are doing." My mother ignored his yelling, but calmly picked up the broken incense stick on the ground, inserted it back into the incense burner in front of my grave, and said in a calm tone, "Can't you see? I am offering incense to my dead daughter, your wife Jinghan." 5. Zhao Shi knelt in front of my tombstone. He roughly disrupted the offerings on the altar table and threw my coffin to the ground. "You must be acting again. You are all lying to me. Jinghan can't die. It's impossible." Zhao Shi frantically dug up my grave, and my urn lay in the small pit. He carefully picked up my urn. His eyes were dull, but he could no longer cry. His mother looked at him with a sneer, but her tone was full of sadness and pain. "Now you finally believe it, Zhao Shi. When my daughter was in a car accident and was dying when she was sent to the hospital with excessive blood loss, you sent people to drain all the blood banks that matched her type, just to save your Bai Yueguang. In the end, my daughter could only die miserably on the operating table. You never came to see my daughter when she was alive. Now that she's gone, you want to leave her body in peace. What kind of evil did my daughter commit in her previous life? Only in this life will she meet such a heartless person like you." Her mother's words were filled with tears, and each sentence was in Zhao Shi's heart. It wasn't until this moment that Zhao Shi finally understood that I was really dead and would never come back. He kept kowtowing in front of my grave, trying to beg my mother and me for forgiveness. But what's the use of doing this now? Just to give Zhao Shi some comfort in his guilty and uneasy heart. His mother threw the divorce agreement that Zhao Shi gave him in front of him. "Zhao Shi, a dead person cannot be resurrected. My daughter is dead and can no longer sign this divorce agreement. But our Jing family, please don't break up with you from now on. We will never care about who you want to be with. Please don't bother us again in the future." Seeing his mother raising her feet to leave, Zhao Shi staggered and caught up with her. "No! Jing Han promised me. She said she would stay with me for the rest of her life. You can't let her break her promise." Zhao Shi's words reminded me of the day we got married. I gently held his hand and told him that I would make him the happiest groom in the world. But the old alliance seemed so vulnerable at this moment. We have been separated forever, but now Zhao Shi wants to mend our broken relationship. You have never given anything to her, and now you are asking a dead person to fulfill your so-called promise to you. Zhao Shi, don't you think you are ridiculous? The mother threw Zhao Shi away fiercely and left without looking back. I looked at Zhao Shi kneeling on the ground in embarrassment, and I felt a little inexplicable sadness in my heart. His devastated look was so much like my despair on the operating table. The secretary on the side came over and handed the phone to Zhao Shi. "Mr. Zhao, this is Miss Chen's number." Seeing that Zhao Shi didn't respond, the secretary sighed and picked it up for him. "Miss Chen, do you have anything to do with Mr. Zhao?" "Where's Xiaoxi? My heart feels a little uncomfortable. Let him answer the phone quickly." Secretary Li looked at Zhao Shi hesitantly and finally handed over the phone. "Mr. Zhao, Miss Chen said that her heart is not feeling well and she wants you to go over and see her quickly." What I didn't expect was that Zhao Shi didn't rush over as soon as he heard about Chen Bingqing as usual, but instead stayed in place like a log. Chen Bingqing couldn't hear Zhao Shi's voice and felt a little anxious. She tried her best to describe her condition as more serious and wanted Zhao Shi to come and see him quickly. "Zhao Shi, the doctor said that I don't have a few days to live. Do you want to leave me at this juncture?" Chen Bingqing's tearful performance finally made Zhao Shi's expression loosen a little, but he remained motionless in place. After a long time, Zhao Shi finally spoke. "Shall we then go to the hospital to see Chen Bingqing? I want to stay with Jing Han here." The sourness in my heart finally faded away at this moment. "Zhao Shi, why is this? Why did I die? I will still be sad and tired for your small favors. I have lived for so many years relying on the little love you gave me, and this is still the case until I die." This was the first time that Zhao Shi refused Chen Bingqing's request. I can imagine how panicked Chen Bingqing's expression was on the other end of the phone, just like my expression on the day Chen Bingqing returned to China. I laughed. After all, we are just the same people, both living on a love given by Zhao Shi. And once this love disappears, we will suffer terribly. Chen Bingqing clutched the phone tightly and refused to hang up. She begged Zhao Shi over and over again, begging him to come to the hospital to see her. But Zhao Shi never paid attention to her again. There was finally no sound on the other end of the phone. Secretary Li sighed deeply and left. Zhao Shi knelt down in front of my tombstone alone and began to express his thoughts, guilt, and regrets about me. I don't know if God heard his confession, but it started to rain lightly in the sky. The rain soaked the soil in front of me, and Zhao Shi held my urn tightly in his arms. There are some people in this world who only learn to cherish their loved ones after they die. 6. Before I had time to savor Zhao Shi's regret, I received even more bad news. My mother passed away. She was lying peacefully on the bed in the hut, with suicide pesticide and a suicide note beside her. The mother walked quietly alone, without disturbing anyone. I only felt a sharp throbbing pain in my heart, and my eyes were filled with white flowers. The next second, I saw my mother opening the bottle of pesticide and pouring it all into her mouth. I cried heartbreakingly. trying to stop her from doing this. But no matter how I waved my hands, I couldn't touch my mother's body. I could only watch my mother fall on the bed. Black blood flowed from the corners of her mouth. My mother, my only relative in the world, was gone. Now in this world, I am the only one left alone. What is the point of God leaving me here? Her body lay in the hut for 3 whole days, and no one discovered it until the stench filled the sky. When my mother died, she was still holding a photo of me as a child, with a smile on her lips. I don't understand why the suffering in this world always happens to me again and again. Is it because this is my life? If that's the case, what's the point of living? My mother had no relatives, so her body could only be dumped in a dark morgue and finally disposed of centrally. What is Zhao Shi doing at this time? He was taking care of Chun Bingqing in the hospital. Yes, Chun Bingqing had another rejection reaction, but this time it was real. She fainted and was taken to the emergency room. Zhao Shi, who is still devastated by my death, rushed to the hospital almost as if he had regained consciousness, guarding his Bai Yue Guang and never leaving. Zhao Shi, you make me look like a clown. I laughed at myself in my heart. But what could I do? Zhao Shi loves Chun Bingqing from beginning to end. The hospital called Zhao Shi's secretary. Legally speaking, he and I are still husband and wife, and my mother is still his mother-in-law. The people there wanted him to collect the old man's body. But just as Secretary Li was about to say something to Zhao Shi, he kicked him out. Bingqing's dangerous period is not past yet. No one should bother me. Looking at the closed door of the ward, my heart felt completely cold. It turns out that once a sincerity is paid by mistake, it can never be taken back. Secretary Li went to the hospital to collect my mother's body on behalf of Zhao Shi. He contacted the crematorium and sent my mother on her last journey for me. He has been watching the relationship between me and Zhao Shi slowly break up over the years, and he probably has great sympathy for me. But at this moment, he is the last person willing to help my mother to be buried peacefully. I don't know whether to feel lucky or helpless. I stared at the ceiling in pain. If there is an afterlife, I hope I will never know Zhao Shi again. 7. The secretary informed Zhao Shi about my mother. But Zhao Shi seemed to have returned to the time when he ignored me. Now he was obsessed with Chun Bingqing's condition and wished he could visit famous doctors all over the world to cure her. Zhao Shi impatiently locked the secretary out again. Jinghan is dead, and I have already repented. Now who are you going to join forces with her mother to put on this play for? The most important thing right now is Bingqing's condition. Don't bother me with her boring things anymore. My heart fell to the bottom again. I was so naive before that I actually thought that I still had some status in Zhao Shi's heart. But in fact, even if I die, his feelings for Chun Bingqing will not waver one bit. Chun Bingqing struggled to sit up from the hospital bed and said to Zhao Shi in a weak tone, Xiaoxi, I'm fine. Jinghan is your wife after all. Something happened to her family, and you, the husband, should go and see her as soon as possible. Her tone was full of tolerance and tolerance, which made people feel distressed hearing it. Sure enough, Zhao Shi immediately held Chun Bingqing's hands tightly and said firmly, Bingqing, please stop talking like this. This time, I won't go anywhere. Zhao Shi's eyes were full of sincerity, as if he was telling the vows he made with his lover. I watched them talking to each other, and I couldn't help but feel sad. Why does God still punish me after I die, and my family is no longer alive? I continue to enjoy their scene of beautiful flowers and full moon. In order to make Chun Bingqing no longer feel insecure, Zhao Shi announced her marriage to Chun Bingqing. As the heir to the Zhao group, his wedding naturally attracted attention from all over the world. Looking at the overwhelming billboards outside, which were all filled with the news that Zhao Shi, the president of the Zhao family, was about to remarry, I suddenly felt a sense of relief in my heart. Anyway, I am already dead, so there's no need to ask anything more from him. Since Zhao Shi got over my death so quickly and fell into the arms of the one he loves, there is nothing wrong with him. Chun Bingqing looked at the invitation to their wedding, her eyes full of joy and disbelief. She had been waiting for this moment for too long, but she looked at Zhao Shi hesitantly. Zhao Shi, are you really going to marry me? Zhao Shi looked at her lovingly and replied gently, Yes, Bingqing, we are getting married. This is not a dream. In a few days, we will be as happy as any other ordinary couple in this world. Chun Bingqing was immediately moved to tears, and her voice choked up, Xiaoxi, you don't know how long I've been waiting for this moment? I often worry that I will not live to marry you, but being able to have you by my side in the last days is my happiest moment. Zhao Shi hugged her distressfully and comforted her gently. They must be the happiest lovers in the world at this moment. I thought to myself, as an outsider, apart from sending silent blessings to the newlyweds, I can only swallow the hurt and pain I have suffered. Zhao Shi, Chun Bingqing, I hope you're happy. 8. The wedding of Zhao Shi and Chun Bingqing was grand and grand. Everyone is saying that the Zhao family is having an affair and that Mr. Zhao really loves Miss Chen, but they have all forgotten about me, my ex-wife, who died 3 years ago. At the grand wedding banquet, I watched the guests coming and going sending blessings to the newlyweds. The faces of Zhao Shi and Chun Bingqing were filled with happy smiles. I couldn't help feeling sad in my heart, but I understood that from this moment on, Zhao Shi no longer belongs to me. After all, who would be happy because of an ex-wife who always brings trouble to him? The ceremony soon began. Zhao Shi was holding flowers in his hands and standing opposite Chun Bingqing with eyes full of affection. I would like to ask Miss Chun if you're willing to marry this handsome gentleman in front of you. No matter whether you live, old, sick, die, rich, or poor, you are willing to be with him for the rest of your life. Chen Bingqing looked excitedly at the handsome Zhao Xi in front of her and said yes to him loudly. But just as the MC was about to continue reciting Zhao Xi's oath, the surrounding lights suddenly went out, and a video appeared on the big screen. Miss, there is no blood bank that can match your blood type in the hospital. Now you have no choice but to die. Instead of such a meaningless death, it is better to leave the heart to Chen Bingqing so that he and Xiaoxi can be fulfilled. The man in the picture is Chen Bingqing's personal doctor, and the one dying on the hospital bed is me. Everyone looked at this video with wide eyes. Even I was shocked that this video existed. I was speechless in the picture. Chen Bingqing's personal doctor gave me a look, and the nurse on the side picked up my hand and pressed my fingerprint on a document. Then, before I could do anything, they pulled out the 4 tube on my body and dug out my heart before I was completely dead. The picture was a bit too eye-catching. Zhao Xi looked at all this with a pale face, and suddenly turned back to look at Chen Bingqing. 3 years ago, your personal doctor told me that your illness was urgent, that you might need a large amount of blood transfusions, and that your blood type was rare. He asked me to quickly mobilize all the Rh-negative blood banks in City A. Why is it such a coincidence? Jing Han had a car accident that day and died of excessive blood loss. Zhao Xi pressed Chen Bingqing step by step with a cold expression. Chen Bingqing explained to him with a guilty conscience. Xiaoxi, listen to me. This is not what you think. It is all an accident. But the more she explained, the less Zhao Xi believed it. Chen Bingqing stepped back step by step in fear and accidentally fell off the stage. The audience was in chaos and didn't know where to go. Chen Bingqing fell so hard that her legs were bleeding. But Zhao Xi did not feel sorry for her. Instead, he continued to ask, "Did you deliberately let your personal doctor say that? Tell me quickly." Zhao Xi grabbed Chen Bingqing's collar out of desperation. Chen Bingqing was injured and was already in unbearable pain, and now she was choked by Zhao Xi and couldn't breathe. She explained breathlessly, "It's not what you think, Xiaoxi, it's not me. None of this has anything to do with me." But it was obvious that Zhao Xi no longer believed what she said. He angrily threw Chen Bingqing to the ground and directly ordered his secretary to call the police. Then he stood on the stage. "I'm sorry, everyone. Today's wedding is cancelled. Zhao Xi, will never be able to marry such a woman."
9.
Chen Bingqing cried heartbreakingly, but this time, Zhao Xi never looked back at her. She was taken away by the police. Interestingly, Chen Bingqing's personal doctor drove away from the scene as soon as the video was released. This act of not bringing it upon himself undoubtedly aggravated Zhao Xi's anger. But the Skynet is vast and sparse. Under Zhao Xi's full pursuit, Chen Bingqing's personal doctor was quickly arrested and brought to justice. Under police interrogation, the truth 3 years ago was finally revealed. It turns out that the car accident I had was not a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Chen Bingqing has been depressed since her heart problem. Even though she has Zhao Xi's favor, she is very jealous that I can become a legal couple with Zhao Xi. But when she heard that she and I had the same blood type, evil thoughts suddenly arose in her heart. They staged a car accident on my way to work, and with the help of a private doctor, they successfully replaced my heart and also solved me, the biggest stumbling block in her and Zhao Xi's love journey. It was like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a pity that maybe evil is rewarded. My heart has been rejecting her body, and at most it can only extend her life by a few years. Now she fell off the wedding stage again, and her body that had been carefully maintained for a long time could not withstand the torment. As soon as she left the police station, Chen Bingqing was rushed to the hospital for treatment. Zhao Xi looked at the evidence in front of him with fear, and suddenly remembered what Secretary Li said to him. He hurriedly drove to my house, but there was only a dilapidated and desolate scene in front of him. After my mother died, the small house we lived in was demolished, and now even my tomb and tablet are missing. As if he had remembered something, he hurriedly called Secretary Li and asked about my mother's situation. But Secretary Li could only tell him regretfully, "Mr. Zhao, I told you a long time ago that the lady's mother committed suicide by drinking poison." At this moment, Zhao Xi's mood finally collapsed. From his pained expression, I could see that he seemed to really regret it. Yes, it's all because of him that my mother and I suffered such a sudden disaster, and did not end well. This is his retribution, and this is what he deserves. Chen Bingqing's rejection reaction was so severe that the doctor said she wouldn't live for a few days. When she was dying, Chen Bingqing prayed to Zhao Xi to see her one last time. Zhao Xi agreed. In front of the hospital bed, Chen Bingqing asked Zhao Xi with tears in her eyes, "Xiaoxi, if I say that none of this was intentional, will you believe me?" Zhao Xi was silent, did not speak, but turned his face to one side. Chen Bingqing understood that Zhao Xi would never forgive her, but she continued to say what she was thinking. "Xiaoxi, we have known each other for so many years, and I always thought that we could go from childhood sweethearts to marriage. But I didn't expect that just because of my health, your family would let you marry someone else. How could I not hate this? Even if you say you only have me in your heart, I still hate Jing Han so much. I feel like she took away everything from me. So when I found out that she has the same blood type as mine, I even felt that this was an opportunity given to me by God, a chance for me to have a new life." Chen Bingqing said this sincerely, but I found it very ridiculous. I also loved Zhao Xi deeply. Before Chen Bingqing came back, I thought I had the best everything in the world. But as soon as she came back, I lost everything. Whether it was Zhao Shi's love, my life, or even my relatives, they all disappeared because of her selfishness. Am I not the one who deserves to be resented the most? Zhao Shi closed his eyes, his tone full of disgust, and he said to Chen Bingqing just like he once did to me. Chen Bingqing, I never thought that you are such a vicious person. A selfish person like you should go to hell. This is all because I love you so much. Xiaoxi, Chen Bingqing suddenly became excited. Because I want to accompany you throughout this life, not watch that person accompany you. The violent reaction made Chen Bingqing's body unbearable, and she couldn't stop coughing. After all, she was just a poor person trapped in love. I smiled a little self-deprecatingly. But when Zhao Shi is heartless, no one can save him. I once gave you my best love, but you were greedy and did so many disgusting things. From now on, I will never look at you again. As for things that don't belong to you, I will take them away. Chen Bingqing collapsed and pulled Zhao Shi's clothes, trying to keep him again. But this time, Zhao Shi left him forever. A few hours after Zhao Shi left, Chen Bingqing died. Bodies were dumped haphazardly in the morgue, with no one paying any attention to them. Zhao Shi sent people to dig out Chen Bingqing's heart and buried it in my original cemetery. I was surprised by Zhao Shi's cruelty, but I watched the living heart being shut in the wooden box, gradually losing its vitality, and something in the body seemed to be slowly drained away. Zhao Shi knelt devoutly next to my original cemetery. He said he would build a temple for me here and pray for me for the rest of his life. He hoped that I could forgive him in heaven. But he didn't know that from the moment I died, all the emotional bonds between us would be severed. Because I know there is a saying that belated love is cheaper than grass. Zhao Shi, I'm tired. Goodbye.